you do not have to take any hormones to consider yourself transgender or to be transgender at all. It's really a feeling about who you are and how you want the world to see you and how you want to represent yourself, right? So there are some people won't take any hormones, but they'll go get, they'll get top surgery or they'll get different surgeries and things like that. But it's really fluid. It's wherever your comfort lies is where you end up.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Queerly Blax Show. I'm your host, Ashley, and I'm so happy you came by. The Queerly Blax Show aims to normalize the everyday existence of Black LGBTQIA plus individuals through an interview-style series with regular folks like you and me. So every week, a new guest shares their story and unique perspective on their existence as an LGBTQIA plus individual. Thank you for tuning in, and make sure you subscribe, download, set your reminders to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Enjoy the show. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Queerly Blax Show. I'm here with a very, very, very special guest today. Jay Jones is in the building. Jay, go ahead and tell the people about yourself.
Hey, what's going on? What's going on? Hey, Jay, 31 years old, transgender man. I was assigned female at birth, and now I am medically transitioning into a man and to operate as a man in society. So right now, I am married to an amazing woman. We've been married for about a year now. And we went through reciprocal in vitro fertilization, and we have two beautiful twin girls. And I'm a dad of three girls total because we also have a 16-year-old. So,
All right, cool. So let's get into it. So just like I do with every guest, when was the first time that you can remember being faced with your sexuality? So like at what point did you know, like, hey man, what's going on here? I might like girls. I don't know. When was that for you?
man, you know what? I really can't pinpoint exactly when it first began because I grew up in a very, very Christian household. Like my mom was a Sunday school teacher. My godfather, he was my Sunday school teacher growing up. And I just always felt different. I really couldn't put my finger on it. Like a lot of the conversations, my sister was completely just mesmerized by B2K. And I wanted to be a member of B2K. And I didn't know, I was like, I don't know. I'm not really like that. I don't really like the boys like that. And I didn't really know how to explain that. But if I was really to put like a stamp on it, like when I actually started to look at women in a sexual way, I would say I was 14. I was 14 years old. I was playing AAU basketball, and I was the youngest person there. All the other girls, they were about 18, getting ready to go to college and things like that. And there was this one particular teammate on the team. She was very feminine, and she had a nice body. And they played that juvenile slow motion song, and she did like a little dance, and it just kind of like I was like, oh no, what is going on? Like I kind of
It's like
liked it.
bring that this way. What's going on? Slow motion for me.
And that's kind of how it like really. That's kind of like where like I kind of realized like something might be off, So that's kind of where it came from. I really forgot about that story, to be honest with you. Yeah,
Yeah. So
14, I remember.
when that happened, did you? Because 14 is like when kind of people are, for some, they may have had an experience before that, like they may have understood it before that, but like when you realized that, did you say anything? Did you come out? Like how long from that moment until you kind of came out to your family?
Oh, I absolutely did not say anything at all. Like I didn't even know what I was feeling, to be honest with you. I just knew that it was different, and we didn't really talk about sex, and we didn't really talk about sexuality really in my household because, like I said, it was a Christian home. So I didn't know really how I felt. I know when I hit the 10th grade, and one of my best friends at the time, we both worked at a shoe store, and I really she was already out, she was already gay, and I was like, well, I don't know, like I don't know, just keep it over there. I really didn't know because I was so
Yeah.
afraid. But honestly, I didn't come out of the closet until I was 18. I was
Hmm.
18 years old. I was on my way out the house when I actually came out. My girlfriend at the time, my senior year, we both played basketball. So, we just kind of found a connection there. And yeah, it was just, I was 18 years old. And when I was kind of forced out the closet, to be honest with you, it wasn't really pleasant. It wasn't a pleasant story at all. Um, my oldest sister, she's a few years older than me. And we went to a club for her birthday. Of course, I was like 16. I was 18 and she had came back from college. She was 20. And we were just kind of drinking and things like that. And I told her, I was like, hey, I was like, hey, I'm gay. Like because the guys were trying to talk to me because, of course I couldn't pick my wardrobe. So guys were trying to talk to me. I was like, bro, like, I'm good. Like, I ain't into that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I ain't really know how to explain it. But I was like, I'm good. My sister was like, why you don't want to talk to anyone? I was like, it's like, I don't like guys. Like, I was like, I like girls. Like, I'm gay. And she just like had a whole meltdown. Like my sister's like, oh, you were
Was she
gay.
the
I
first
call
person
you
you
out.
came out to?
Yes, it was the worst. I was like, if this is how it is, I'm never coming out again. Like it was traumatizing to be honest with you. And right after that, like it was Easter Sunday, the next Sunday, and my mom, we were in church, and my mom, she kind of saw my face, and I was just kind of already in tears because of the night before. I was just so like disgruntled. I was just so just traumatized and so thrown off. And my mom, she actually put me in the car. We driving around, and she finally got me to calm down all my tears and everything like that. And she was just like, "What's going on?" I said, I don't want you to hate me. I really don't want you to hate me. Like, I don't really know how to say this. And she was like, "Baby, like, I can never hate you. Like, tell me what's going on with you." And I was just like, I'm gay. I like girls. Like, it's nothing. I tried to pray it away. I tried to get away from it. I can't. Like, it's just who I am. Like, I don't like guys, and I can't make myself like something I don't like. And she was just like, she's always known. And I was just like, well, if you knew, why you just didn't tell me?
Right.
Because it would have saved me so much more of
You
this.
know, we need to talk to the parents and just be like, I almost wonder is like they be knowing and you sitting over there as a kid, you're like, man, like my mom gonna disown me, like my parents gonna
Yeah.
hate me, like if I tell them, and half the time they be like, I was just waiting on you. So it's almost, it's like, well, so was you waiting for me to figure, like, was you waiting for me to be straight? Like, what were you waiting? What exactly were you waiting for?
But I'm gonna be honest with you. After we spoke, like it was not all peaches and cream. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm from a very toxic household. And my stepfather is very, very abusive, both emotionally, mentally, physically. Like he was just not the best person growing up. And so she told my dad, actually, she told my stepfather the story and everything that happened, and they asked who it was and things like that. And it just turned into a big crazy like fiasco. Like they took my cell phone. Um, they wanted to meet the girl's parents. They both our parents had to sit down on the couch, and like I'm there in tears. Of course, remember I grew up in a
Mm-hmm.
Christian house, so her family's not so much, Bible thought,
Mm-hmm.
but she was a lot more like whatever. And I was just kind of like broken up, and it was just it was bad. Like I ain't gonna lie to you, it was really bad. Like even when I got to college and I came back home, like after already just being out, I started dressing more masculine once I got out of the household. And it still wasn't pleasant until I became my own person, which was probably around like 20. But it was very uncomfortable, man. It was very
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
You know that transition is rough. And you're from Memphis, right?
Yeah, born and raised Memphis, Tennessee. Yeah.
Yeah. So how were like images of, gay people? Were there images of gay people? And then also what was the perception, even if it was just from TV? Like what were there ever conversations about like the imagery of gay people? Because like for example, in my house, not so much about women, but like about men. Like my dad would be like, that sissy shit, or like, my dad would say like things like that.
Yeah.
And I knew that my dad wasn't homophobic, but just that was his, you know, that was his language. Like that was just how he kind of referred to things. I don't even think he thought anything of what he was saying, but like, how was that for you?
It was honestly because I played basketball my entire life. The only instance I can think about was Cheryl Swoops. That was when like
Mm.
Cheryl Swoop had first came out, and he was
Mm-hmm.
talking about like her sexuality and things like that. And my stepdad at the time, he was like, well, my stepdad, not at the time, my stepdad, I don't claim him now, but he was very just negative. He was just like, oh, gay ass bitch, and it was just
Mm-hmm.
really, it was really, really negative. And I was like, you know what, like this is probably not a safe space for me. But honestly, it was no representation at all. Like not in Memphis, not anywhere. My mom kept us in such a box where I didn't know other stuff existed. My friends were the ones who taught me things about life. Like my family was not about their life. Like they were not open to anything other than Jesus, the church, and that. And that's really what that was it. Jesus and the
Yeah.
church.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. So then when you came out, I'm assuming you came out as lesbian
Yeah.
at first. And then when did you know that you wanted to transition? Like what were the images, or how did you identify with the fact that it was more than just being lesbian?
Yeah. Honestly, I didn't have the language to really say how I was feeling because we didn't do therapy and things like that. Therapy was so taboo, especially
Mm-hmm.
like in the Black community. And so I didn't realize that it was more to me until I'm gonna say 3 years ago. Like 3 to 4 years ago, I actually was triggered a lot in my past marriage. I was married before, so this is my second wife. My first wife, she triggered me a lot in different ways, and I didn't understand what was going on. Like she would like touch my chest at the time. I had boobs, so she would like grab my boobs, or like she would make comments about me being beautiful, or she would make comments about my body being curvy, or like she would make little comments, and I would tell her like, hey, that makes me uncomfortable. And I've always felt that way growing up. Like somebody called me beautiful, I'm like, hey, like I don't like that word. My mom was like, what word you like? She like handsome. I'm like, I don't know. Can I like handsome? And she never told me if I could not. But I
Mm-hmm.
didn't realize that I even wanted to do more with myself. I didn't even know transgender people even existed, to be honest with you, until my late 20s. Like I knew of people who were transgender, but it really wasn't clicking for me. I didn't get it. It didn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But when my best friend, he went through his transition, we became friends, and I watched him go through his transition, his first year, second year, and I just kind of watched him, and I realized like I got a little envious. Like I was just kind of like, it wasn't like I wasn't happy for him. It was just like I wanted that same happiness that he was feeling for myself, but I was so afraid to even go through with that because I had already encountered all the craziness with coming out as a lesbian, like growing up. And then on top of that, you're afraid like, oh well, nobody's gonna want to date me. Like, I want to be this man lady man or whatever. That's kind of how I was
Mm-hmm.
feeling. And it just got to a point where I was I would hope sometime that I would just not wake up and I would just come back and be a man. And I had always had those thoughts, I always had those feelings, but I never knew like what that even meant or what does that mean for my life until my best friend started transitioning, and then I watched him go through it, and I was just like, okay, I got to do something. And he was talking to me about it one day, and I was just like, no, like I don't think that's me. I don't think it's me. And so I started going to therapy because I was being triggered in my past marriage. Just started going to therapy, and I was working through,
Now, was
my
this just a reference? Were you still in your marriage at this time, or were you
yes,
out of your marriage? You were
when I
in your
first
marriage.
started going through therapy
Yeah.
because of the toxicity of that relationship. But I knew that I did have issues with like my gender. I didn't really have a real big understanding of it, but I knew that I had to find a therapist who also specialized in gender dysphoria because that was something that I was dealing with. Like I told you, I was being triggered. She would touch my chest and things like that. So I was like, maybe I need to look into something like that. And that's kind of how I started therapy from there. So that's why I
Got
said a
it.
little bit over 3 years. But yeah, it therapy saved my life. Like I'm just all I'm
Hmm.
gonna say is therapy really saved my life.
Yeah, I know you talked about it. I've watched some episodes of Trans Talk Tuesdays, which we'll talk about a little bit. And I know you talk about that, like going to therapy and how that was a lot of the reason why you didn't get for your journey wasn't as dark as some people's can be, because you kind of had that along, like you were able to identify the fact that like you needed help
Yeah,
sooner than a lot of people are able to admit it to themselves. I'm a huge proponent of therapy. I think it's one of the greatest things that Black people can discover, just given all the trauma that we experience as just Black people in general.
absolutely.
Take the gay LGBT stuff off and it's still, just traumatic, and then you add this on top of it and it's just like a whole different situation. um but yeah, so uh your so coming out of your last marriage, what was that process like for you? Because it sounds like your transition, like your mentality started to shift in that marriage. which was already negative, already toxic, kind of already had its issues. Was that something that you shared with your last wife, or did you kind of just in the marriage and then start
Oh
this
no. Oh, no.
outside of that?
I spoke to her about it prior to, which ironically, she's the one who helped me find a therapist because she knew I was struggling with it and I was struggling with it. And so, ironically, the therapist that she was seeing at the time also ended up being my therapist. It wasn't on purpose. It was just kind of like, it was the same clinic. I had been looking for a therapist. I could not find anybody. It was so hard for me to do it. I'm really terrible with locating stuff. So I could not find a therapist, and she was like, "Hey, well, the clinic that I go to, like, they do have resources as well. You may want to check them out." So I took a look, and I called them. I said, "Hey, like, I want to schedule an appointment with this other person," and they were like, "Well, what are you coming for?" And I was like, I'm really dealing with gender dysphoria," and they were like, "Hey, we have someone who specializes in that." And I was like, "Okay, well, put me on their books." And then ironically, ended up being the exact same therapist, which was another spiral of how things just kind of fell apart. But yeah,
Yeah, no, I got you. I
and,
got you.
and as I was navigating like how my therapy sessions went, when I first went to her, I told her, I said, "Hey, I'm really struggling like with my gender. I don't really know like what any of this stuff really means. Like, I don't really know where I want to move or how I want to move or what I can do like to make myself feel more comfortable." And so she gave me an assignment, and she gave me all these different terms. She gave me she gave me lesbian. She gave me non-binary, transgender, gender non-conforming. Like, she gave me all these different terms. She said, "Hey, I want you to research all these terms, and I want you to tell me which one of these do you feel best represents who you are." And I'm looking, looking non-binary. I'm like, no, lesbian, no, I absolutely not. Like, so I'm like, well, she was like, well, what would comfort look like to Jay? Like, what does that look like? I was like, I really don't know. I'm like, but I know that comfort does not look like boobs. That comfort does not look like having curves. That comfort does not, I don't know. It just doesn't look like this. I can't even look at myself in the mirror. Like, I hated even just like going and brushing my teeth and looking at myself in the mirror. It got really bad. And when, I was really, really afraid to even just say, "Hey, I'm transgender." I was so afraid to just say that. Like, it was just such a taboo. Like, just saying that word, it was just so much negativity, especially, anytime somebody say transgender, is like negativity, boom.
Yeah.
So that one assignment really like helped me understand and helped me do the shadow work that I really needed to do in order to be faced with myself and be like, "Hey, like, this is who you are. And it's okay to be afraid. It's okay to feel all these big feelings, but just know that you're safe within yourself to be able to move in whatever direction you want to. There's no rush to start medically doing anything. There's no rush to do anything at all, except for you to just feel and to be. And whenever you are ready to do whatever you want to do with yourself, you will know." And so that it took about, to be honest with you, from being in that space, it took me about 2 years before I even thought about moving forward because I was still navigating other things as well. But it took me about 2 years to actually admit that to myself and move forward.
Yeah. So then let's talk about the journey, right? So for I really want to make sure people walk away understanding like this is a very it's a very wide spectrum of what it means to be transgender, right? So at the point that you accepted the word transgender, you were like, okay, this is what it is. It feels negative, but it's who I am. So I have to own it, right? At what point did you start identifying yourself as a man?
To be honest with you, I was always afraid to, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't start identifying myself as a man until when I knew I was ready, when I went on ahead and started my appointment for, actually, before I met my wife. I'm gonna be honest. It was like when I met my wife is when I started mentally getting in a space to be more comfortable being called he and sir and things like that, because I had been so afraid of it in the past, like negative, don't no. But it's like when I met my wife, I'm gonna say that was probably about 2 years ago. That's when I started mentally transitioning myself to be prepared to be in these different spaces. So to be called a man, to be called her husband. To me, that felt natural. Like being her husband, that felt good to me. Somebody, my ex-wife called me her wife, it didn't feel right, you know? So it was just, it took about, it was like 2 years ago when I finally was okay with being that. When I actually accepted the term transgender and transgender man and he, him, and things like that, that's when I knew. I was like, okay, it's time for me to go ahead and move forward with what I'm gonna do for myself.
Yeah. And so what's the difference? So like transgender man, what does that mean?
So if you think about it, so transgender man, right? So someone who is transitioning into a man. So someone who is assigned female at birth, and then they take testosterone, and now they're becoming a man. So transgender man. Now a transgender woman is just the opposite of that. It's someone who's assigned male at birth. They take estrogen or hormones, and then from there they become a woman in society. So transgender woman and transgender man.
And are there other words? Is there any other label for a transgender person?
Not that I'm aware.
Just one or the other.
I mean, you don't have to follow. So being transgender is really like a spectrum, right? So I did mention non-binary. There are people who are non-binary, meaning that they don't identify with either gender or they're gender fluid. So they can go one way or the other. So, but when it comes to being transgender, it's really like a big umbrella term for someone who's, you can be on non-binary and still be considered transgender if you would like.
Yeah. And then the part about like when you decide to transition and you have to tell people kind of affirmatively like, this is who I am. It's almost like a rebirth, like it's a reintroduction to a new person, but somebody that you already know, but as somebody else, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people get like a new name, or they'll do some kind of something of their original name. And then people have what's called a dead name.
Yeah,
which is
your birth name. Yeah.
Your birth name, which you no longer go by, and you go by the name that you gave yourself. Is there a term for the name that you give yourself, or is it just your new name?
You can call it anything. I call it my birth name and my rebirth name. Or you can call it your dead name and your new name, whatever. I just feel like dead name just sounds so morbid. I just wanted to feel like it's speaking life and it's light and it's exciting and it's happy. So I like birth and rebirth, you know?
Yeah, no, I like that. That's pretty cool. So when you're in that transition, right? Did you have conversations with your family about the fact that you're not lesbian anymore? You're now transgender. Did you ever have?
This is where because
I feel like when you're transgender, a lot of times people have two coming out stories, unless you're like Zaya and you're so super young, and it's kind of already like implied that that's, and I'm not putting that on her as much as I'm saying she already identifies with a rebirth, like at a very young age. But when you come out later as lesbian and then you go transgender, that is like two different coming out stories. But did you have to go back and have, because they're still going to call you like she and my baby girl and all that stuff, so it's almost like kind of reestablishing it? Or have you taken the route of like carving that space out for your family to still identify with your old labels? Or what was that conversation for you? Absolutely not.
Oh man, it's, to be honest with you, I'm not, I'm not gonna knock anybody who does that. I mean, to each his own. Whatever makes you feel comfortable, allow yourself to exist within that space. For me, that's not where my comfort lies. My comfort does not lie in that space. It never has, it never will. I know when I was younger, I absolutely hated my name. I was like, why did I get like the girliest name in the entire world? Like, out of all the names you could have given me, you could have gave me a neutral name. You gave me a girly name, but yes, it is like a second coming out, to be honest with you. It's still kind of a battle right now. With my birth mom, and with that side of the family. I know with my dad and my bonus mom, they kind of just got it. Like once I told him, I was like, hey, like, I know that you usually call me this nickname. However, like my name is Jay, and it's always been Jay, and I feel very uncomfortable when you use that name. I will be medically transitioning to a male, and yeah, I'm your son. So, and they were just like, "Cool, what's up, Jay? What's up,
Mm-hmm.
son?"
Mm-hmm.
It was real easy and real smooth for them. And for the people, my family that I made here in Texas since 2013. So I've been here for a while. My family and friends that I made here, like it was really like they kind of already could tell anyway. So they were just like, okay, it wasn't like this big long out like, hey, theatrics or anything like that. But with my mom, even prior to like even just mentally transitioning, the very first thing I did was I changed my name. I changed my name years ago. And when I was on my way to get my fingerprints done to change my name, I told her, I said, hey, I'm actually going through the process of changing my name. And my name is Jay.
So
And
you did all like legally, your name's different. Is your sex different too on every like on? Okay.
not yet. And that's because of the military. So I haven't
Mm,
done that part of it yet, but no, not yet.
okay.
But for me, the first thing was my name because that was the biggest dysphoria that I had was my name, and
Mm-hmm.
so I wanted to address that issue first before I even could move on to anything else. Like going to doctor's appointments, calling my birth name, I'm like, hey, like, can I give you guys a different name? And even still, like, I would get Experian updates on my phone, or I would get like stuff from Hertz, and I'm just like, oh, can I change this? They were just like, well, your name, it has to be the name that's on your driver's license. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. That's what I need to do is change the
Change the driver's license. Yep.
name. But when it came to my biological mom, and I told her that she was very, very negative once again, very negative with that. And it's just been a journey, you know,
Yeah. It's
still
a
trying to get
process.
on board, but I don't know. I think I'm just so far along, like with everything, that I'm just at a point where I don't know if I'm in a space mentally and emotionally to take multiple steps backwards in order to get her to catch up with everybody else. Because everybody else is already calling me Jay. They've always
Mm,
called me that, and even when me trying to teach her that or really like, hey, like, or expose her to it, she was really like she rejected it, and so it's just like, well, I don't know what you want me to do.
yeah. Yeah. And that's very different than you
I
know,
like girls.
I talk about like how it's different when you know that a person is just they're trying to live into it, but they make mistakes, or like they may mistakenly call you she or something like that, but it's not in malice,
Yeah,
versus someone who's like literally just rejecting the process, like
absolutely.
someone who's like and it feels like a rejection of your identity, like it feels like it's like a slap in your face kind of thing, because you're trying to form your happiness, and this um, this situation is presenting itself. So let's talk about the spectrum of transitioning, right? So the first thing is obviously mental, which comes for a lot of people along long before the physical transition. So there are people who that's enough for them.
Mhm.
Like the mental transition of people calling them he or she, depending on if it's a transgender man or a transgender woman, all the way to full on
Yeah,
regender assignment
yeah,
or gender reassignment, right?
yeah.
Um, what like for you in that process, like what's do you know what is your comfort level in terms of like transitioning, and talk about just kind of like the different like levels of what that looks like for people, or what it can look like for people.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad you said that because I think we spoke about this on the podcast that that we did, is that you do not have to take any hormones to consider yourself transgender or to be transgender at all. It's really a feeling about who you are and how you want the world to see you and how you want to represent yourself, right? So there are some people who won't take any hormones, but they'll go get, they'll get top surgery or they'll get different surgeries and things like that. But it's really fluid. It's wherever your comfort lies is where you end up. Now, I know for me personally, because I had such a dysphoria with certain, with certain things, like certain body parts. Some people don't have dysphoria, but having certain dysphorias with like just looking at myself in the mirror, just my build, like my body, like those different things. For me, I knew that that wasn't enough for me. But what I do, or what I tell people to do in general, is to just take small steps and make a list of the things that bother you. And once you look at that list, what is the easiest thing for you to knock off? For me, I always tell people, hey, like if your name is one of the things, go ahead and knock the name change out, because for one, it's a process. It's not like, hey, I want to change my name and tomorrow you go and get a new name. No, you have to get fingerprints done. You have to submit documents. They have to do background checks. You have to go into a courthouse and you have to actually go in front of a judge and get your name changed. Then once that paperwork gets to you, you have to wait till it gets back. And then once that paperwork gets back to you, now you got to submit for your social security card. You got to submit for that. You got all these different, you got to change your license. So it's a lot of things. So I'm like, if that's one thing that you are looking at changing, go ahead and knock that out first. Like the other stuff will still be there. You can do those things simultaneously, but that name change is like the thing I would tell somebody to do. If you want to change your name, do that first. And then the next step, like if you want to, if it's how you feel, then you look into hormones. You look into, do I want full masculinization? Do I want to, completely appear as a man in society, or am I just comfortable with, taking low dose testosterone where my voice is a little bit deeper? Maybe that's where my comfort lies, or whatever. So it's like that. Like I said, it's a spectrum. But I always tell people, make a list of the things that bother you, and then from there you can kind of tackle the things that you can kind of tackle that list, and you'll be able to understand like where you are most comfortable.
Yeah. So you have like, so you obviously have the mental transition, you have the physical transition, you have the medical transition. So physically for a woman, most women, you can get a physical change without taking testosterone or any sort of.
I mean, it takes years if you don't take testosterone. I mean, if you have to really lift really heavy, but it really just depends on body type.
Lift really heavy.
Like, I'm for real. It depends on body type. Like I'm a slim guy, right? I'm a little person. So for me, it might be easier for someone of my stature to be able to go into the gym and bulk up a lot easier than it is for someone that, who has really large breasts, or someone, so it.
So it's just all dependent in terms of like who you are. Yeah. Those things all like it's personalized. It gets personal to the individual.
Exactly.
Got it. Talk about the difference between like gender dysphoria and body dysphoria or body dysmorphia, or feeling like, and I'll give you an example, right? Because I think we all try to make things make sense to us based on what we understand. So like when a person goes through a physical change from a transgender standpoint, why is that different than a person who just wants to get plastic surgery, right? So like somebody might be like, oh, well, okay, so you get breast augmentation or, something like that. Okay, so like that's the same as like if I get my butt done. But that's not the same thing, right? And why? Because people try to make it make sense to what's within their realm of understanding, but that's not what gender dysphoria is.
No.
So talk about the difference between the two.
So dysmorphia, I guess people what's the dictionary? but dysmorphia is basically, let's say someone who, I get to use the same example you said, a woman who wants to go get a BBL or something like that. The difference is she is A-okay with the gender in which she was born as. She just wants to make certain adjustments to enhance herself, right? Someone who is transgender, we don't like anything about, we may not like everything that we were born with. So we want to change it completely. So it's like, it's basically, it's because of the sex that you're not okay with, right? So it's like the things that make you a woman: boobs, hips, booty. A transgender man ain't gonna be. A transgender man is not going to feel that same way about that. So dysmorphia is basically like, I don't like how I look in the body in which I was born in. I need to enhance my womanly features. And someone who is transgender, we're more like, hey, I don't like titties. I don't like curves at all. I want to look like this dude over here. So let me do that. So that's really like the biggest difference is you're comfortable with being comfortable with the sex in which you're assigned and you want to enhance versus completely wanted to change those appearances, period. And
Yeah.
no longer have those things.
Right. And just to kind of close off the transitioning conversation, um, everybody who's transgender does not have gender reassignment in terms of their bottom half.
Correct. I think you know what, because I really hate that question. I'm gonna be honest with you because I'm gonna tell you why. Because
and I wanted to ask you why you talking about that. Just also add this, right? What is politically correct and incorrect? Because I think that's also a challenge for people is like understanding what's politically correct versus offensive. So as you talk about this, talk about that as well.
Okay, so I'm glad you said that because the one term that I really hate is fully transitioned, right? Because what you consider fully transitioned is to fit a cis heterosexual male perspective, right? Meaning my entire body looks exactly like someone who was assigned male at birth. That may not be what I want for myself. For me, fully transition may be chopping my chest off and taking testosterone. That may be full transition for me. So I really don't like that term, to be honest.
Yeah, because again, right, respecting the spectrum and there could be people, you know, that just changing their name
is enough.
And changing and just you calling me he is enough.
Right.
I'm good. That's all I need. I feel very, very much comfortable versus like, I don't gotta go do all this medical changes and, you know, fit this heteronormative to be
a man.
What you would consider a man. Right. That's not what this is for anyway. It's not for you, it's for me, right? So no, I like that you clarified that because I do think that people feel like when you say like, oh yeah, I transitioned or I'm transitioning, it means like there's this ideal endpoint, but the truth is the spectrum, you decide what the endpoint is, you decide what's enough for you. So thank you for clarifying that.
Of course.
Wow, that was awesome. I appreciate that. So then when it comes to I want to talk a little bit about your beautiful family. You are married, you have 2 beautiful babies, twins, and you talked about reciprocal IVF. So if you could just give like a brief summary of that and just kind of talk about just the journey of you and your wife having your babies.
Okay, so reciprocal IVF is basically like this. It's my eggs, her womb. Well, my eggs, donor sperm, her womb, our kids. Like that's as simple as I can put it. It's like that. Man, the story of my wife. Oh man, this
as much as you feel comfortable with.
You're trying to make me sad. I know I love talk. I'm gonna tell you, I would talk about my wife all day long if I could. She's
that's
amazing.
Awesome.
So anyways, you want to know how we met? You want to know just about the journey?
Yeah, you can give me the backstory. You know, tell the people how you got to smiling every day and the joy that you feel right now. Give the people some hope.
So I actually met my wife off Instagram.
Hopped in the DMs.
Yeah, so she found my page. Like apparently she was like chatting up with somebody else who lived in Dallas, who I have no knowledge of at all. And I showed up as like a suggested follow, and like she saw my page, and I used to do like little morning like gym mornings and meal preps, and like I was just all fitness everything. And she would just like watch my little highlights, and she just kind of liked my energy. She was like, I really just liked your energy. And so when she slid in my DMs, I was actually in Egypt at the time, and she was also across the country in Bali at the time. And she was like, "Hey, I'll tell you happy birthday on your birthday. Like, when is it?" I told her. I was like, she ain't gonna message me. She just talking, whatever. And I get back home, and I'm home, and I'm just kind of kicking it. And my birthday came. She hit me up at 12 a.m. and she told me happy birthday. And I was like, oh my gosh, she remembered my birthday. Like for real. She's like, yeah, I put it in my phone. I want to make sure. I was just like, that was really sweet. Like, oh,
that was.
And from there, like we just started just talking. We just started talking. And we actually, because I saw her page, I thought she was a catfish. I thought she was fake. So I was like, I'm going to chop up with her, but I ain't going to really give her too much. I think she's fake. I think maybe my ex-wife is trying to play games or some shit.
Ah.
Like maybe this, I don't know. But anyways, when she slid in my DMs, and one time we just got to a point, I was like, you know what, let's FaceTime. And she was like, oh, I work the night shift. You can FaceTime me in the morning or whatever. I was like, well, I'm going to get my car looked at. She was like, well, that's fine. I'm like, well, it's gonna be 8 o'clock. You sure? It's gonna be 6 o'clock Cali time. She was like, oh no, it's fine. Just call me. Just FaceTime me. I'm gonna wake up for you. I was like, she ain't gonna answer this phone. So I called her. I FaceTime her. I'm sitting there, and she answered the phone. And like when I saw her face, I was like,
she's real. It's over.
this is it. Game changer. You know.
Done. Ain't to play a card up.
Man, oh my God. I couldn't. I was like, dang, I got all the aces in my hand now. What is going on? Yes. But we talked for like 27, 28 hours, like on FaceTime that long. And when I saw that things were getting serious between us, I told her, I said, hey, like, I really want to make sure that we cover all these bases before we even get too deep into our relationship that we're trying to build. I asked like, hey, like, have you ever been exposed to anyone who is transgender? Are you open to dating someone who will be transitioning to a man? Like, what is your knowledge? She was just like, well, she was like, I don't have any, I'm not familiar with being transgender or anything like that. So I had to kind of explain to her what it was. And I was just like,
now what's was she identifying as just lesbian, or was that okay?
Yeah, as a lesbian. And she was, I told her, I said, hey, well, this is the path in which I would be going down. I said, I do want someone who is, I have my non-negotiable list. And I was just like, hey, like, I want someone who is open to carrying my kids. So our kids together. Since I can't give you the other stuff, I got to give you this. I said, I want someone who's open to carrying, my seed. And I also want a woman who is okay with being with someone who is transgender. Like, is that you? Like, how you feel about that? And like, does that change like how you feel about me? If it does, like, that's okay. And she just kind of like paused, and she was just like, it's not about any of that stuff with me. She was like, I love who you are as a person. She said your spirit, your essence, your gentleness, your kindness, your all of these things that make you a person. That's what I'm drawn to. So I know the outside stuff may change, but who you are to your core is what I fell in love, is what I'm falling for. And I was just like, okay. And at that moment, I knew we were getting married.
Yeah, for sure. And you guys have been together for how long? 2 years? 3 years?
We have been April 2020 is when we first were together. So she flew. So anyway, that's when COVID first hit. So like March, my birthday's in March. So when COVID hit, she was like, hey, I can just fly out to Texas and we can spend a little bit of time together just to kind of see like if we were even compatible. And when she flew out to Texas, it was in April. She stayed with me for 38 days. 38 days. And it was just kind of like, I need you here with me, or I need to come there. We need to figure this out because I love you, girl. You know what I'm saying? But she was willing to leave Cali, and she moved here and she got a job like before she even got here. It just everything that was so seamless and so like easy. And then like we planned this crazy photo shoot just to kind of announce, because I never shared my partner on social media before. So we planned like this crazy photo shoot just kind of announce like, we're together and things like that. And I actually planned a proposal simultaneously because I kept asking. I was like, hey, if I was to propose to you, like, how would you like it? Or would you say yes or whatever like that? She was like, yeah, I'll marry you tomorrow if you ask me. I was like, okay, cool. So I got like all her friends. I planned it from Texas. So I had her best friend, two of her best friends actually helped me plan everything and get all the decorations. And I hired a videographer and all these things. So it was just amazing. It was just so seamless and just so perfect. It was creepy perfect. You know what I'm saying? Like my life was
love is love, man. When you know.
My life has never just been this smooth and this stress-free and this healthy and this happy. And it's just like, when's the bad stuff coming? But
yeah, we conditioned to think like that, but it's good.
Therapy helps. It helps you get out of the mind frame. But it was just from there, we just kind of moved forward. So we did the honeymoon. And then right after the honeymoon, we started IVF. And that was a journey. All the shots, and we weren't taking no more shots no more. We was just taking all the other shots, you know.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
more, no more 1942,
oh man, we were
Douce,
living.
whatever your drink of
Come on,
choice is.
man.
That's a different life. So when you for reciprocal IVF, because now, were you taking any type of medication for transitioning at this point?
No, I put my transition on hold.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to ask because I know, like, you obviously wanted to have children that were about biologically connected to you. So I was going to ask, just like, if taking medication kind of affects that process at
It does.
all. It does, right?
It does. So I know a few guys who are actually getting off of testosterone for a good 6 to 8 months, so they can go through harvesting their eggs as well. But I was like, man, maybe I should just get started. But it was just kind of like, hey, like it's no rush to live how I'm gonna be the rest of my life. I'm like, I'm gonna get there when I get there. It's like, what is the most important thing to you right now? Because when you take testosterone, the changes don't happen overnight. You still clearly see my face. It's changing and it's happening. My voice is different, but it's like you're still not there. So it's like it takes at least a good year, 10 months to a year for you to actually truly like look, look different and everything. So it was like the most important thing to me was for me to have biological children, or at least give it a try. Because I never wanted to live my life saying, oh man, I wish I would have tried this. I could have did that. But it's like, you know what, let me just do it because YOLO, like, I only get this life one time. I just want to be happy. And if it don't work for me, then we can just have kids together and
Yeah.
hold that. So yeah.
So you went through that process, and me and my partner we've been together for 13 years. So I understand the process of having children. I don't want to harvest my eggs or have I've decided I'm okay with them not being biologically related to me. It's important to her, and she's gonna have them. So it's we IUI is the path for now. If we have to face IVF, we absolutely will. But it's very expensive.
Or ICI.
Or ICI, yeah.
Okay.
It's very expensive. Like
$21,000 for the Jones twins.
For the Jones, man, it's. But how amazing you guys got twins! Was that the plan, or did that just once it just happened that way? Who is people wanting twins because you just go through it at one time, man, and you're done. If you want 2 kids,
let me tell you. My wife only wanted one more kid. Now, I was praying for twins because I always wanted to be a twin myself, but I was like, if I can't be a twin, then maybe one day my wife will have twins. I was kind of manifesting that anyways. Twin girls, of course. I was like, I want twin girls. But no, heck no. Like, we were not planning that. We just didn't want to have to repeat it because, for one, all those shots and everything, it was a lot. It was a lot. Like, we were off social media, everything, just because we wanted to just really hone in and focus on what we were doing and just keep that intimately between us. And so having to go through a second round, I told her, we're not going through no second round. I looked at her in her face. I said, babe, we're going to be a one-time go. All right. I had my wife doped up on sea moss, on elderberry. I'm talking about my wife is taking all the healthy stuff. We doing plant-based diets. We doing light meat. I mean, I was like, we're going to get these bodies ready because we're not repeating this at all.
You don't want to listen. You don't want to pay for that twice or 3 times, but unfortunately, some people obviously do. And you guys have, your twins, which is absolutely amazing. So do you still have some embryos left?
Yeah. We have like 7 in the freezer.
Nice.
Yeah, that's it though. We're
You say we're done.
The twins is it. I'm glad. I'm a Kobe dad. I'm a Ludacris dad. I'm very, very happy. I always wanted all girls, so I'm happy. I did. Some people like, I want a son. No,
like, nah.
you little boys are icky. Little boys are gross. I know that from taking hormones. Little boys are gross. Do not, do not. Oh, thank you.
Actually, we both want sons.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm like, a daughter? Oh, goodness.
Man, what? Why not though? Why not?
Huh? I think probably because for me, I grew up in a house with all women. Yeah, I mean me and my three sisters and my mom and my dad, but it was all women. It's just like the energy is just different. And for us, it's like, I don't know, we just landed on a boy. And I think we not that, what a boy would probably lean to, with the dance recitals and the, I ain't trying to assign these things to them, but the likelihood that our son would be, having us at the dance recitals and stuff like that is a little lower than if it's a girl. So
think so.
we think so. No, I'm not. And I'm not assigning these things to him, but just, that's just kind of,
I don't know. I look at one of my daughters, I'm like, she probably gonna play football. Like, I was just
probably, yeah, and we would probably have like, we imagine that like either way, because my wife she plays sports. She's a D1 swimmer, in college, and all her brothers are like, athletes. So we imagine that either one of them would be, athletic. But then her sister is a very much classically trained dancer. She's young, but she has she's in every type of like any kind of dance you can think of at like a very high level, so that's just where we landed in terms of what we wanted to have. But yeah,
it's okay to,
I just want a healthy baby. At this point, I'm like, I just want healthy kids. I really don't care what they are. Like, I have my little fantasy list of like, but
let me tell you, one thing that I have learned, because I told you we have a 16-year-old as well. One thing that I have learned in general is do not have expectations for your children, because that's why my mama probably feel, the way she's feeling, is because she had expectations for me to look like this, to be this, and to navigate my life that way. And it's like, your children, once you have them, they are already their own. They are. Once they arrive to you, they're their own people. So it's our job as parents to really just give them love and give them the tools to navigate their emotions in a healthy way. So I don't have it. Like, I told you I play basketball. I play collegiate sports. I play semi-professional basketball. So it's like, oh, do you want your daughter to play sports? And I'm just like, I don't care what my daughter does. If it makes her happy and I can support it, I'll be the cheerleader dad. I'll have the little signs. I'll be doing the dance moves. I do not care. I'm going to, whatever that looks like for them. So I just say, don't have expectations for your babies. Just let them be who they are as people. And that way you won't be disappointed whenever they don't turn out the way that you think that they should turn out. That's it.
Yeah. I've landed on just healthy children at this point.
Yeah. You may get what you want though. You may get
I hope so. We'll see.
Manifest.
But to your point, we have a son, and then I don't care what they decide to do. For me, I've always said, whatever they are, they're gonna be the best at it. So if I have a son and at 5, he like, I'm about to wear these dresses. Okay, well, you're gonna wear the best, you're gonna be the best dressed, you're gonna be the best, you're gonna have the best stockings, best whatever it is, you're gonna be the best at it. That's my expectation, is that you're gonna be the best.
I love it.
Whatever. I look, whatever you want to do. If you're my daughter, my son, whatever y'all want to do, but y'all gonna be the best. That's what you're gonna do. You gonna get the best resources, whatever you need to hone who you want to be. Awesome. So Trans Talk Tuesdays. How did you start that?
I don't know. I don't really know how I started. I'm just kidding. No, so I had a bunch of guys like really sliding my DMs. Now I'm a very private person. People can't tell right now because I'm a lot, like, I kind of share my life a lot more. But I knew I always wanted to build my social media platform. But I have always been a very private person about my life. And I just kind of got to a point where I wanted to be the representation that someone else needed, like that I needed to see. So if somebody else I can be a resource for somebody else, then I'm going to do that. If I can answer a question to help you become more comfortable within your own skin of who you are and help you navigate that, I want to do that. Now, I'm not a therapist by any chance, but therapy has really turned me into a different kind of person. I am a very comfortable person. I'm very comfortable in myself, I don't care how anybody feels about it, but if I can give that light to somebody else, then I want to do that. And so I would have lots of guys asking me tons and tons of questions in my DMs, and I was like, you know what? I'm getting to a comfortable enough space where I'm okay with talking about my transition, with sharing my pre-T voice, with sharing all these different things about myself, with sharing my horror story from my top surgery, for sharing the terrible relationship that I have now with my biological mom because of my transition. So it's like I'm comfortable enough within my space and within myself to be like, okay, let's answer these questions and let's help get you some resources because I didn't have this education. And if I can give you this education where you can choose whatever feel good for you, then I want to do it for you. So we just kind of, just a bunch of guys. We just started talking and
Y'all hilarious.
man, we also have like a Poet Up Radio. So we started like a podcast and it's just like it's all trans guys.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like five of us and we just kind of talk about different topics like, being black and being LGBTQ, being um surgeries and all different types of things that people always ask us and crazy dating stories and dating as a trans man. So we talk about all those different things like on the Poet Up Radio as well. But Trans Talk Tuesdays, I feel like it gives people a way, gives people an avenue to be able to like get to not only know me, but to ask those questions that sometimes the big people who you may know who may be transgender and kind of out there that they won't answer for you. And I'm like, well, hell, I'm here. Let's talk.
Yeah.
I like to talk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's dope. Y'all talk about a lot of stuff. There's a lot of questions that I have, but I want people to go and check y'all out because you go into a lot of detail about like, I've listened to like the horror story about your top surgery and a lot of things that you guys talk about, dating and stuff like that. But people go check out Jay's page, Trans Talk Tuesdays. They definitely go into a lot of details, a lot of different perspectives. And you can get a lot more information about his journey and any type of guest that you guys might have. I did want to ask, you have you talked about your 16-year-old daughter, who is from your wife's previous relationship. What was the journey of, being introduced to her and the transition, and what was that conversation? And I think I'm asking you this because I want to give credit to kids. I think people put a lot on children and like they assume that there's a lot that kids can't handle and oh, this is too much for them and blah blah blah. And I'm making an assumption, I'm gonna put it out there, but I imagine it was not as bad as people might think that something like that might be. So talk about what that was like.
So with my daughter, it really was just kind of just telling her, like, that's it. Like, she is 15. So, she's in high school and things like that. And, we've been around each other and everything. I decided not to really talk to her about it until I started medically transitioning. So until I actually started taking testosterone and, she visits us because currently at the moment, praying that this changes, she lives with her biological father. And, he's Jehovah's Witness and, but she grew up, for 14 years with my wife. So my wife at the time, her and old dude, they broke up when baby girl was like 2. So majority of her life, she's been around, her mom being with women. So it was kind of like, whatever, So she had that type of mentality, like, okay, people are people, love is love, whatever. Like, I don't care. And so whenever it was time for me to just be like, hey, you know what, like, I will be transitioning, like da 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 da. It really wasn't that deep. My wife was just like, hey, Jay's gonna become a man, gonna be taking hormones. She was just like, okay, well, what does that mean? Like, what does that look like? And I, we just sat down and just talked to her about it. And she was like, oh, that's pretty cool. You happy?
In
I was
plain
like,
language.
what?
No, like the birds and the bees. It's just very much open, blatant conversation.
The only thing she asked me, she asked me how I got to this point, and I told her, and she was just like, are you happy? And I told her, yeah. And she was just like, okay. She was like, now I may slip up with the pronouns, but I promise you I'm gonna get it right. Just like I said, it'll be easier for you. Like the more and more that I start to look different, start to sound different, it'll be easier for you. But as long as you're trying, it's all that matters, baby. And she was like, all right, cool. But she loves me. She loves me so much, man. Oh my God. That's my baby. Like,
Yeah.
she's dope. But yeah, kids, I think that people people make it too difficult. I'll give you this example because I don't want to rant on this, but I'll give you an example. This it's a transgender guy because transgender is just how you identify on the outside. He dates men, so he is a gay man basically.
Mm-hmm.
So he has a daughter with his husband that he gave birth to with his husband, and people are like, oh, you're confusing that little girl and da 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 da. And so the way that he had the conversation with his daughter was this, to kind of explain to her like how she came here. He was like, hey, there's different types of men in this world. So there are men who are born boys and there are men who are born girls. And the men who are born girls, how they become men is that they take hormones to help them be who they want to be and be who they are. And she was like, oh, okay, that was really it. Like it's really not hard. I think that adults make things just so difficult for children. Like
we put things on them. We put things on them. Like even people who identify as like non-binary, right? Which means they're not he or she, it's they. And so, I asked like, my friends, I'm like, okay, well, how does like, if somebody can't, like, if that's too much for somebody, like, because in the English language, that's a plural thing, right? People have a hard time like putting it in sentence. And she was like, it's super simple. She was like, if you can't get it right, just call me by my name.
Right. I was just about to say that.
Just don't say any of it. Just call me by my name. Wherever you could put he, she, or they, you could just put my name and that's it.
Exactly.
And she's a teacher, so it was like, okay, well, what do the kids call you? Because it's either, it's Miss or Mister. And she's like, Mix.
Yeah. It's that simple. It's like
and the kids are like, all right, cool. Like, and they just keep going. Or like they'll ask you, oh, are you a part of the LGBT community? Yeah. And then they just, okay.
And move on.
Some of them will be like, oh, okay, me too. And she'd be like, I ain't gonna talk to you about that. But like, okay, cool. Like you just move on, So I think we make it too complicated for kids. We put our adult mind on children who don't know this world for themselves. And so this is not something that's necessarily foreign to them. It may be whatever it is to you, but not to assign that to kids. So I definitely wanted you to just talk about how like that conversation is not what people make it out to be. Like it's just not that deep.
Yeah, it's really easy. I think what the issue is that adults don't know how to explain it. And so that's why they say, well, the kids are going to be confused. Like, well, no, you're the one that's confused. If you can explain it to them, you can say A, B, C, D, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just explain it to them like A, B, C, D. It's that simple. They're like, well, they don't have the verbiage to be able to explain it to them, and that's the real issue.
Yeah, they don't have the language. It's so funny because we were just talking about that, and me and my wife were just talking about how even me and my mom is not uncomfortable with my sexuality in the sense of like, she'll tell people like, yeah, my daughter's gay, whatever. But when it comes to like other things, she just needed language to be able to explain stuff. So she would be like, this is Ashley's partner. Like, or like, this is like, there's certain situations where she just didn't have the language. So I literally would give her language. Or like, my wife was talking about how her mom, she'll ask her like, well, how do you, how am I supposed to explain this to X? Or what do you want me to tell X? And she'd be like, don't tell him anything. And I said, yeah, you should just tell him to call you. I said, oh yeah, you know what? Rochelle would love to hear from you. You should give her a call. That's her language. Like that's because she can't even put it in her, like together in her mouth to, and her journey is a little different, just, being Pentecostal Christian and that kind of thing. But like, she don't have the language. She don't have to. Here's her sentence. You know what? Rochelle would love to hear from you. You give her a call. And now you don't even got to tell them nothing.
Exactly.
It's just about helping them form the language to be comfortable getting through those parts of the conversation. And it's not always going to be that they're like, yeah, she's with the woman and this and this. Like, it's not going to be that, but what is it? Like, so that this is not something that every single time it comes up, we have to talk about it. Like, what makes you feel comfortable? Let's put some words together for you. So no, I think that's super important. That's actually a really good point of just about language and people feeling comfortable with what they feel comfortable with. So that's a very good point. Awesome, man. So we've reached the end. of our conversation, our first one, obviously want to thank you again for, sharing here. And I think that this is going to definitely help a lot of people. I definitely learned a lot in this conversation, so I definitely appreciate it. But I always ask, what piece of advice do you have for whether it's a young person or older person who may be struggling with their own queer journey?
Oh, that was a loaded. Why did you not tell me about this?
I'm sorry. I should have gave you that before. I should have told you beforehand. But yeah.
Say the question one more time.
Advice for somebody who may be struggling with their own queer journey.
My first thing is if you have access to therapy, go. And I guess the next thing would be, you don't have to tell everybody how you're feeling. First, feel safe within yourself. Because once you feel safe and confident within yourself, then you'll feel a lot more comfortable being able to have different conversations with people. Everybody is not a safe space. So you can't be open and telling everybody your business. There's always resources out there. If it's not myself, it's always somebody you can always reach out to. But if you don't have that, or if you're not living in a safe space, it's okay to hold on to information about yourself until you are in an environment where you are safe. Because the worst thing to do is to put yourself in an environment where you could be possibly abused. So that would be my advice.
Well, thank you so much. This is another episode of the Queerly Blax Show. I'm your host, Ashley. I'll catch y'all on the next one.